close any of my stuff. Oh, it's live. All right.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to an historic edition of the Big East Coast podcast, where both of us are in the same place at the same time. I'm Chris Novak, joined alongside my tag team partner, Rob O'Neill. Rob, welcome to New Jersey.
Yeah, thank you.
Last afternoon, he got into town. And also happening last night was our ill-fated attempt at making Big East Coast Bias a Mets blog, which went about as well as Mets hitters performed against Madison Bumgarner, which is to say, unfortunately for the New York Metropolitans, not well at all.
No, not great. Did not go great for the Mets.
No, it did not. You can blame us, I guess, for jinxing that. So, because we'd always been against the Mets and they kept winning.
Yeah.
So, we should have just kept it the way it was. Yankees and Cubs.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So it goes. This is the third edition of our Big East Coast podcast. Last two editions have been talking about St. John's as well as DePaul. And today we are talking about a team hailing from the Washington, D.C. area, the Georgetown Hoyas, the former standard bearer for the Big East Conference, which has fallen off a peg or two since the
80s.
I guess technically you could say the 80s, right? But since the realignment happened, they haven't exactly fared so well.
No, it hasn't been great for them. A couple rough years. Hopefully for them, accumulating with last year where they went 14-17?
15 and 18 with a record of 7-11 in the conference.
Some real bad losses along the way, which we'll get into. I don't know if there's any general Big East news that has broke since, when were we here, Monday?
Yeah, we were here on Monday.
The media day crew is out in terms of players, which
slowly but surely is all going.
It's nice. I really think they picked the best, possible 2 or 3 players from each team to talk to, and it will be there. Depending on NLDS Game 4, we might be able to hop on real quick after Media Day. Just give a couple thoughts.
We could do Facebook Live from New York.
Yeah.
Live from New York, it's Big East Coast Facebook Live.
We don't really have any Facebook people, though.
We don't, but we could do it. We could do it.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
We certainly could. If you're interested in that, let us know. We will certainly broadcast live from New York City if there is an audience and a market for that.
Yep.
We certainly have no problems with that. But yeah, like you said, actually the full list is out now of all the attendees for Big East Media Day for each of the 10 teams. Providence is bringing the most with 4 players. I saw DePaul was only bringing 2, Eli Kane and Billy Garrett. I believe that was the case last year. I think they only had Billy Garrett and Mike Henry there, so that's not super surprising. Everyone else is pretty much bringing 3. Villanova trotting out Josh Hart, National Championship game hero Chris Jenkins and Darryl Reynolds. But on a Georgetown-related note, the Hoyas who will be attending Media Day are Bradley Hayes, Isaac Copeland, and transfer Rodney Pryor.
Okay, that's a little surprising that neither of the bigs are there, but
I'm a little surprised that Govan's not there.
Yeah.
LJ Peak, I believe, was there last year.
Yeah.
I guess they're kind of just spreading the wealth.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, but they'll all be there. I think all the coaches will be there too. So we'll see John Thompson III there too.
Yeah.
As well. So let's just dive into Georgetown last year. As we mentioned, 15 and 18, rough 7-11 mark in conference, which pit them 8th out of 10 teams in the Big East Conference. They were 1 game behind Marquette, who of course went 8-10 in conference play. As you alluded to, some pretty poor losses, notably including their season opener against Radford, where they lost in double overtime by 2 points. A loss to UNC Asheville, which wasn't great. Both of those losses coming at home at the Verizon Center. No major road losses in their non-conference, except for the loss at Maryland, but that was a fine game to lose, and everyone thought, they were going to be like the best, or they're like the best 0-2 team in the country.
Yeah, that game was close till the last. I think it was a 1-possession game.
Yeah, it was a 1-possession game, and Maryland wound up winning by 4
Yeah.
But that was very well played to the end. I mean, you can't really.
Yeah.
Georgetown
No, and then they beat Wisconsin. Everyone thought they were maybe getting back to it because everyone still thought Wisconsin was good at that time,
Yeah.
and then they weren't good, and then they were good again.
Exactly. So.
I believe the Duke game was relatively close too.
Yes, they only lost by 2.
Yeah, so
they only lost by 2 points to Duke. They started off 1-3,
and then they rolled off some wins, and everyone thought they were fixed, and then
they lost to Monmouth, which wasn't a bad loss, but then the UNC Asheville loss kind of took them off the mantle there. They lost by 6 points.
I think Charlotte was close too, wasn't it?
Yeah, they only won by 3.
Yeah,
that game was on the road, but they only won by 3.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, first and foremost, going into this year is avoiding losing to mid-majors.
Yes, that would be the biggest thing for them. And they start off against USC Upstate, a team that last year, let's see, how did they fare last year?
They played someone in the Big East
I
last
believe
year.
that they did, yeah. USC Upstate in the Atlantic Sun went 10-22. They did not actually play anyone in the Big East. I think they played someone recently, but I don't think it was not last year. No, because last year they played Texas A&M, Navy, Winthrop, Georgia Southern, the Citadel, Clemson, East Carolina, UAB, and Colorado State. So,
all right. So I mean, that's a game that Georgetown has to win.
Yes. Yes.
But I don't think we don't need to necessarily do their schedule yet.
No, let's talk general.
More about last year.
Yeah. So, they go into Big East play at 7-5, and they had no room for error. But then they start off 2-1.
Start off 4-1.
4-1, actually. Yes, that's true. They start off 4-1, and at this point you're thinking, okay, maybe they're on the right track.
Yeah.
And they rip off wins, nothing major, but they did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of inspired some confidence in people. Like, oh, they're beating teams that they should beat because their wins were against DePaul, Marquette, DePaul again, and St. John's.
Yeah.
3 teams, I should say, and 4 victories that they should have attained, with a loss to Creighton on the road. And, going to the CenturyLink Center in Omaha, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
And then they went and lost to Villanova at home in what I remember being a pretty terrible game.
Yep, it was only 55-50. So that was a game that was not really.
Yeah, well, and then they went to Ohio and beat Xavier.
Yeah.
So it looked like things might be okay.
And then they had the road loss to UConn, which was a very well played game.
Yep.
They only lost by 6. And then they beat Creighton at home by 1 point.
Yeah, and then they lost 9 out of their last 10.
Exactly. And then that's just kind of where everything just started to derail.
Yeah, so you're going to want to not do that, first and foremost. But, you look at the losses, a lot of it can be chalked up to extenuating circumstances. I mean, sometimes you just have bad luck. Look, Creighton a couple of years ago, I think like 10 of their losses were 5 points.
Yeah.
And, they improved on that last year. They're going to probably improve on it again this year. So, really, if you can, those close games, if you can make 1 or 2 plays that you maybe didn't make last year, I mean, the game goes differently.
Exactly. You'll see that, sometimes from year to year, your luck will improve. But it just wasn't there for Georgetown last year. And that's how they wound up in the situations that they were in. And I mean, none of the losses were necessarily bad.
No. It's
just the fact that, if you want to succeed in this conference and in any conference, you have to beat the good teams. And they just weren't talented enough to do that.
I mean, who were they lost to all the Big East NCAA tournament teams and then Marquette once on the road.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's not terrible losses, but you have to beat those teams if you want to succeed. And they just were outclassed and outmatched.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and a big part of the problem was, a lot of the offense was run through DSR, and when you just run it all through one person, he's not necessarily clicking.
And he was clicking, though.
Yeah.
A majority of it, but you can't just run a one-man show.
But also, Bradley Hayes, who had a great start to the year, broke his hand.
Yeah.
I believe. They had a couple injuries, actually.
They did.
I know Paul White.
Yeah, Paul White had
got messed
hurt
up, and now he's at Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there were a couple other guys who.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Hayes
numbers,
played 27. Well, actually, no, everyone else pretty much played 30 to 33 games. So it was only Paul White and Bradley Hayes were the major.
Yeah, but Hayes was big for them this last year when he played, and then Paul White was pretty big the year before. Yeah, so I mean, there were some injuries there, but and now you're without DSR, so that's a change that I think, and we'll get into this in a little bit because I know we have a question about both their starting five and their tempo. They're going to be slower this year. They're going to work into the bigs more. They're going to work in guys like Govin, who still a projected first-round pick on Draft Express.
Late first-round pick, but first-round pick nonetheless. He can definitely help himself. He's the second-best prospect in the Big East per Draft Express right now, and I'll get to him in a little bit when we talk about him.
Yeah.
I really like him as a prospect. So.
Yeah. And, with Hayes coming back for another year, if he can do what he did last year, that's a pretty solid front court.
Yeah.
I think probably right up there with Seton Hall.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. So yeah, that pretty much covers and encompasses everything with last year, and of course, the burning question on everyone's mind, as it always is with Georgetown the past few years, is what is the status of head coach John Thompson III? Well, it's very tough to gauge because if they haven't gotten rid of him now.
Yeah, I mean, if they have another year like this one, it's definitely going to pick up steam and something that they might have to act on. But obviously you run a big risk with his father, who they just built a new practice facility and put his name on it.
Yeah.
You want him to be around. It's an interesting situation. Honestly, and this might sound crazy, but the one guy that I might fire John Thompson for, because I don't know how good of a job Georgetown is.
I don't know at this point either.
But this is going to sound crazy. If you can get Patrick Ewing to do it, Patrick Ewing's been a very good NBA assistant coach. I think name recognition alone he still has, especially for guys in New York. I think if you can get him to, stop pursuing an NBA head coaching job and come coach Georgetown, you would fire John Thompson for him. Because again, I don't know. You got your guys like, Greg Marshall's not going anywhere. I don't think.
No, not for this job. I don't think.
And that's another thing. I mean, Duke and North Carolina are going to be open soon. Syracuse might not be 100% sold on Mike Hopkins. There are going to be better jobs out there than Georgetown. UCLA is going to be open maybe as soon as this year. So, you guys like Archie Miller, they're not going anywhere. They're going to sit and wait and continue to do well at the school they're at until Shaka Smart did it. He sat and waited. He didn't go to Illinois. He went to
He didn't go to UCLA either. He went to Texas.
Waited for an ideal situation, and now he's building something strong down there.
Yeah.
So, I think Patrick Ewing is a guy that you could maybe reach out to see if he has any interest in it. And you might even be able to get John Thompson Jr. to stick around if you have Patrick Ewing, you fired my son, but here's the guy that I'm real close with. So, it's crazy. I just don't think there's a chance of it happening. But Georgetown is not in an ideal situation.
All right, two things. One, I actually do like your idea. I think Ewing, like you mentioned, he's been pursuing an NBA coaching job for God knows how long now, and Lord only knows why he keeps getting passed over. Because he's been a pretty good assistant everywhere that he's gone, and I think Georgetown would be a great spot for him. Two, I actually have three things. Two, I'm not so certain that Syracuse is necessarily a better job than Georgetown because when you put, I understand, but it's very hard to recruit kids to go to freaking upstate New York in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's what Syracuse is.
Yeah.
It's up middle of nowhere upstate New York compared to Washington, D.C. in the DMV area.
Yeah.
You're comparing apples to oranges there. There's no comparison. DC is a much better area than upstate New York. So I think Georgetown's a better job than Syracuse, though I don't think that Georgetown's job necessarily right now is super good, just because I think that they've gotten a bit passed over, because the only thing right now that they can rely on is their history.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and when you have to rely on history for your job, cough, cough, Notre Dame football, cough, cough.
Yeah.
What is your real selling point? Because they haven't been succeeding in the NCAA tournament, and they haven't been succeeding in the Big East Conference of late either.
No,
so
their recruiting's been down too.
Yeah,
I mean,
that too, especially in a recruiting-rich area like the DMV, you need to be hauling butt.
You know who's cleaning up the DMV? Jay Wright.
Yeah, Jay Wright is really recruiting that area hard, and that's poor for Georgetown. Yeah. And for pretty much everybody in that area, too. He's making it look silly.
Yeah. So.
And I think my third thing was that, I covered all my bases. Yeah. But I do like that Patrick Ewing idea, because that would make a ton of sense for not only Patrick Ewing's benefit, but for the school's benefit in sort of a Chris Mullins sort of fashion for St. John's.
No, exactly.
It's the exact same idea.
Exactly.
And so I like that idea. In fact, you should write a post about it.
Yeah. I mean, a guy like Patrick Ewing, it's almost Chris Mullin on a bigger stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they both played in New York, technically. And, Georgetown historically is a better program than St. John's.
And it's a better big man program than St. John's.
You would get a ton of national media. Obviously you need, like, St. John's to grab, a top-level recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
no, I do like that idea though. In theory, it could be what they need, but we would need to see how things progress, and we would need to see Georgetown actually pull the trigger on something. Yeah. And I'm not so certain that they're going to do that, because nepotism is ruled.
Yeah.
But I mean, nepotism rules in literally every field.
I think Patrick Ewing Jr. is technically on their staff in some capacity.
I believe he is on their staff. That is correct. He's their director of basketball operations.
Yeah.
So you already have the Ewing family present in there. So it would just be a matter of bringing him on.
It's a long shot, but
it is. It's a good idea in theory.
Yeah.
It is a good idea in theory.
All right. So this year?
Yeah. I think, like I had alluded to, one positive from last year was the play of Jesse Govan. It may have trickled under the radar under DSR and everything else, and because Govan, he was a good contributor, but he was still technically, he was a significant contributor, but he wasn't always in the lineup when Bradley Hayes was in there at first. But Govan had become a very good player, and what I think is the most remarkable thing about him was the fact that he had so much range. Yeah, pretty much anywhere. He did need to work on his inside game, which sounds crazy for a big man, but he only was converting on I think I read it when I wrote about him. He only converted on 58% of his baskets at the cup, which if you're a big man, you need to make those gimmies. Those need to be gimmies for you. You need to have a higher shooting percentage when it comes to that. But small sample size aside, he went 14 of 28 from three. For a guy who's nearly 7 feet tall, he's 6'10". That's impressive. And he showed a good ability in the high post as well to make shots from that area too. Good pick and pop guy. Obviously not going to be a guy to create his own shot at the 3-point line, but a good catch and shoot player as well.
Yeah.
I think Govan is an intriguing player to watch this year for Georgetown, especially since they have Hayes back for another year. How is John Thompson III going to use him? Because let's face it, he's probably only going to be around there for another year if he excels, and if he gets good reports from the NBA. Because big men, they may not be valued as much as they used to be, but if you can get a guy like him to be able to stretch the floor as he's able to do in an offensive side of the ball, you're going to jump at that opportunity.
Yeah.
So I really like Govan. I really do. I think he's going to be worth all the hype that he's getting as the second best prospect behind Edmund Sumner right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's going to be someone that needs to be, under the magnifying glass this year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a big year.
Okay.
And their other freshmen did what they usually do. Marcus Derrickson was a good role player. Caleb Johnson didn't get too much burn, but that should improve this year with, some of the guards and some of the other forwards departing.
Yeah.
Because I know the one issue with this Hoyas team this year is that they are remarkably thin in the backcourt, but loaded up in the front court.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of lineups we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
When we talk about who we think the starting five is going to be. But yeah, so I really like Govan. That's the main whole point of this presentation. And the freshmen did what they usually do.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen with John Thompson, he's not afraid to trot out these freshmen. He did it with the group of Peak, Copeland, when Paul White was there.
Yeah.
And I think that trend is going to continue this year too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk more about this year. So
yeah. Well, I know.
So do you want to talk about the roster, or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean the roster. Obviously we talked about the bigs. They don't have DSR.
They don't have DSR, but they do have Ronnie Pryor. Their transfer from, I believe it was Memphis.
Robert Morris.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Actually from Chicago.
Yes.
Also.
Yes, he went. Yeah, from the Evanston area. You're right. He was from Robert Morris. I think I was getting.
And
I was thinking of Avery Woodson. Well,
yeah,
Memphis. Ronnie Pryor came from Robert Morris.
I think a guy that people might forget about that actually Alex Sindelar just reminded me. I'm going to butcher his name, but
the transfer from Louisville.
Yeah,
Okoye
Gao.
Yeah, Okoye Gao. Yeah.
Yeah, he was hurt last year, but he's been highly touted. I mean,
yeah, I actually he had slipped my mind as well, but you're right. They did get him last year from Louisville, and he unfortunately got hurt.
Yeah, they got him, and then he sat out a year,
Yeah.
and then he was practicing last year, and
Yes.
I believe blew his leg out.
Yeah, something to that effect. But yeah, it makes sense that Alex would bring him up because he's an Omaha kid.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, he'll be an interesting player to watch as well in that loaded front court as we alluded to. So as far as their incoming freshmen, Jagan Mosley out of Morganville, New Jersey, should be a very good player for them as well as their freshmen will do as they often do. They need help in the backcourt because it's just Trey Campbell right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pryor's going to get some good burn, but
absolutely. But I expect Mosley to either start or be in the front court, along with JUCO transfer Jonathan Mulmore.
Yeah,
is another player that I think can get pretty significant burn this year.
Yeah.
However, John Thompson III chooses to use him.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad roster. It's not particularly deep, but
no, it's very deep in the front court, but very thin in the back court.
Yeah.
So they are one of the teams, the few teams in the Big East where you might see them use a lot more forwards than guards. Because it's usually, in this conference so far, it's a lot of guards, not a lot of forwards.
No.
Which is the case for, Villanovas and Xaviers of the world.
Yeah.
Creightons and whatnot. So.
Yeah. As far as their schedule this year, I know we talked about USC Upstate already.
So they have USC Upstate, and then they host Maryland.
Which, I mean, that might be more winnable this year.
It could be. Maryland, they obviously lost a lot.
Did Trimble finally leave?
I need to check that out.
I don't remember him getting drafted anywhere.
I think he was going to, but he's coming back.
Okay, but they still lost.
They lost Lehman,
Robert Carter.
Suleiman. Yeah, let me check them right now. Let me look at their depth chart right now. So they don't have. They still do have Trimble, but they lost Diamond Stone.
Yeah.
They lost Lehman. Obviously, they lost Robert Carter, Shat Clear. So they still have DeMonte Dodd.
Yeah.
and a couple good freshmen coming in: Anthony Cowan, Justin Jackson, as well as Micah Thomas and Joshua Tomite.
But it's still winnable for Georgetown.
Yeah, definitely. Maryland's not the team that they were last year. That's a definite fact. So I think because the game is at home, well, I don't know necessarily about their home court advantage, so to speak, but it's definitely a winnable game. It's not like they're having to go into College Park.
No. And then
they play Arkansas State.
That's a game you need to win.
That's a game you definitely need to win.
That's on campus too. So
yeah, that's at the McDonough Arena, which will be a fun game to watch.
And then they go to Maui, and you open against Oregon.
Talk about being thrown to the wolves.
Yeah,
it's probably the best team in the Pac-12 conference. They might be without Dylan Brooks, but they're still loaded regardless.
Yeah,
with a team that last year went to the Elite Eight before losing to Oklahoma.
Tyler Dorsey's back. Peyton Pritchard's coming in.
Yep.
Dylan Ennis is ready to go this year. So
they still have Chris Boucher.
They might be able to exploit Georgetown's lack of guards.
Yes. And in their side of the bracket, they will be facing either the winner or the loser of Tennessee-Wisconsin, which, if they have to face Wisconsin again, that's problematic.
I think they match up well against Wisconsin, though.
I could see it. I think that Wisconsin's a very good team, but I think they would prefer to face Tennessee in that case. And then on the other side of the bracket in Maui, as we talked about, the third or fourth games that they have to play. The other side is Oklahoma State, UConn, North Carolina, and of course Chaminade. So North Carolina.
Basically, you don't want to play Chaminade because that means you're 0-2.
Yes, exactly. Unless Chaminade pulls off what they did a few years ago when they beat Texas.
True. Rick Barnes looking for a little revenge this year.
He could pull it off.
Yeah,
Tennessee goes 0-2 and Chaminade goes off 0-2. He can get his revenge when Chaminade beats Texas.
So Tennessee plays Wisconsin, and then the winner or loser in this case for them to play Chaminade. So it could
happen. Georgetown. How do you project them here? I think this might be a rough trip in paradise.
This might be the best Maui field we've ever had. And,
it's a pretty damn good field.
They've had a lot of good fields over the years, but this is like almost a little bit of a sample of PK80.
This is
very,
very
you have a lot of talent here. You have UConn, obviously, who they're good, I guess.
There's a lot of great guards there right now.
And they have
you know what happens when UConn has a lot of great guards.
And they have the 5-star Gilbert. I want to say Altrique Gilbert.
Altrique Gilbert.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
He's coming in this year.
Yep, Altrique Gilbert, their point guard. Christian Vital, Vance Jackson, Mamadou Diarra.
Yeah, so, they're good.
Yeah. And Amita Brima is somehow still in school.
Yeah. North Carolina is hungry.
Yeah.
They apparently have unfinished business per their hashtag the other day.
That is apparently the word.
They're still good. They still have
Nate Britt, Isaiah Hicks, Kennedy Meeks, Justin Jackson, Joel Berry, Theo Pinson.
Some
Seventh Woods coming into school. Seventh Woods, great name.
Yeah.
Great name.
He was a Georgetown guy for a lot of targets. So,
I remember it was between Georgetown, North Carolina, and South Carolina. A lot of people thought he was going to South Carolina.
Yeah.
But he wound up going to UNC.
They're pretty good. I don't think Tennessee's any good this year.
The SEC, you're fighting for second place with Kentucky. So it's pretty much
it's kind of like the Big East there, but I think the Big East has more talent top to bottom than the SEC.
Definitely. I think that the SEC, it's Kentucky, and then you have this group of Texas A&M. You have
which is different than having a group like Xavier, Creighton, Seton Hall.
Exactly. As far as Tennessee goes, they have Quay Parker, who's going to be a good freshman for them.
They still have Kevin Punter.
I don't believe so. Let's see. No, he's gone.
Okay, well that's beneficial because he was good.
Yeah. Robert Hubbs the third and JUCO transfer Lou Evans are the only super experienced players in this
All right,
team.
so Georgetown's probably better than Tennessee. I think
Yeah.
they match up well against Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to beat Oregon.
No, I don't think so.
Oklahoma State is interesting because they
they still have Phil Forte somehow, some way. That kid is still in school. They're a very looks like they seem to be a very young team.
Yeah, it's a bit of transition for them.
Yeah.
I think Georgetown could maybe get 2 wins. They're probably going to lose to Oregon.
Yeah,
and then
they can be. I think they can be.
If you play Tennessee, and then who would they play after?
They
Tennessee?
would either play Oklahoma State, UConn, North Carolina, or Chaminade.
Okay, so
I think that they can pull off a win if it's Oklahoma State or Chaminade. I don't know about UNC, and I don't know about UConn.
Yeah.
Who they play later in the year anyway.
Yeah.
At the Verizon Center, which should be fun. We'll get to that when we talk about their schedule.
Yeah. So I mean, no, I think they could go 2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 is definitely feasible for them. I think that the first game against Oregon is not going to be pleasant.
No.
I think Oregon can exploit the you-know-what out of them.
Yeah.
When it comes to their matchups against their guards, and I think their forwards certainly match up well with them too.
But I mean, Oregon's going to be top 10 team in the country at this point, so
there's no shame in losing.
No,
to them. There's none.
No,
it's like there was no shame in losing to that Maryland team last year. But
yeah,
I mean, you shouldn't get all down in the dumps if Georgetown can't beat Oregon because not a lot of teams are projected to be able to do that this year.
So. No. So after Maui,
Georgetown heads back home for 3 games against Howard, Coppin State, and Elon.
Those are 3 wins.
Those are 3 wins you definitely need.
And then they go to the Carrier Dome.
Yeah. First they go to Miami to play LaSalle.
Are they in the
I think they are in the Hoop Hall thing.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Because DePaul's there. They play Temple.
Yeah, so they are
Look at the cold weather teams planning a trip to Miami in December.
Can you blame them?
No,
I can't blame them at all. But yeah, then Georgetown heads up the way to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome, which should be a very fun time.
The last Jim Boeheim game against Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
That's gonna be a spectacle, and it's on ESPN. And it's an ESPN game.
I wish it was on CBS so you could get ref.
Right.
That's the only thing.
That's true.
Unless they're going to send Sean McDonough and
Jay Billis. Jay Billis that would work.
Yeah.
McDonough and Billis.
The guy that used to do Big East.
Len
McDonough. Yeah.
That would be pretty fun. I could see that happen.
That's a winnable game, by the way. Syracuse isn't. They weren't good last year either, but
I think they'll be better this year.
Yeah.
We're certainly getting Tyler Lydon back as well, and having Gil St. Bernard's and area native of mine, Tyus Battle.
Mm-hmm.
He beat the piss out of my high school when he was here. I looked up the stats. He went crazy. Battle's gonna be a good player.
Yeah.
So and then they have the transfer from Nebraska, Andrew White.
Yeah.
Coming into the fold as well. So I think Hughes is gonna be good, but you can throw out records at that point because you know that game is going to be well played on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
If that's a blowout, I'll be shocked. I will be totally shocked.
Yeah. No, the Carrier Dome's going to have some people in it.
Yes, absolutely. And then
Greensboro.
They have UNC Greensboro, their second to last, technically not non-conference game of the year, but the last one before Big East play starts for them.
Yeah. And then UConn comes in the middle of it.
Yeah, they have UConn on January 14th at noon Eastern on Fox. Which should be
honestly, I mean, it just seems like it's a little bit of a down schedule for Georgetown compared to what they usually.
Yeah, that's a very good. I mean, obviously Maui makes up for it, but aside from the Maryland game and obviously the Syracuse game, and the Maryland game may not even seem as big because they still have Mel Trimble, but
it'll be big out there.
Yeah, of course, but usually Georgetown is one to load up the deck for themselves.
Well, they wanted to play Kansas.
They did, but Kansas backed out.
Shocking.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with you. This does seem a little down in comparison, but that's good for them because there's no excuses.
No, yeah. I mean, they shouldn't lose any of their home games.
No,
I mean,
they really shouldn't.
Maryland's beatable, and then you play a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, they should not lose. There is no reason for them to lose any of their home games sans UConn.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
They should be 1, 2, 3. So we gave them 2-1
Yeah.
in Maui, so 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1. We'll make the LaSalle game just out of it. So and we'll take out the Q's game, and then so that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They should go 7-0 at home.
Yeah.
And then you tack on the 2-1 record in Maui, so that's 9-1.
Yeah.
And say you lose to
LaSalle or Q's.
LaSalle or Q's, and you go 1-1 in that stretch. What 10 and
2? Yeah.
There you go. You're technically 10-3 if you lose to UConn.
Yeah.
In a non-conference schedule. That's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. There's no reason that they shouldn't go 10-3. If they are below that, then something probably went wrong because all of their home games are cupcakes.
Yeah.
Except for Maryland
Yeah.
and UConn. But even then, those are still one of them is winnable.
Yeah.
You can split that down the middle.
Exactly.
And you are fine because there's no reason. And I know there was no reason for Georgetown to lose to Radford and UNC Asheville last year. Well, there's no reason that Georgetown should be losing to USC Upstate, Arkansas State, Howard, Coppin State, Elon, and UNC Greensboro.
No.
None.
No.
There's no reason at all.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely no reason at all that these teams should be losing to. That this team should be losing to those teams.
No.
And that's no disrespect to those colleges and their programs, but there is probably a clear talent discrepancy between them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to tell you if they go like 7-5 again or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. All right, are we doing questions? Is that where we're at?
Do you want to do questions? Because we kind of
talked about the roster. We talked about the schedule.
Yeah. Do you have it? Do you think that there's anyone on this team that is in need of a breakout season, or that's kind of, on the cusp of doing something special, or what?
I mean, I think it would help if LJ Peak could get. He took a step back last year.
Yeah.
So,
I think Peak and Copeland definitely took steps back last year, so I do agree with you there.
Yeah, because White and Peak and Copeland were all really solid.
Yeah, no, they were really so. They were a big reason why they got to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So
it was mostly their contributions, along with DSR and everyone else. But the freshmen 2 years ago were really a reason why they did so well, and the then now sophomores last year were a big reason why they kind of fell off the map.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this only interests me, but I think the big thing with Georgetown is just simply they need to go back to what used to work for them, and that was just mostly defense.
Yeah.
Because, you look here, a lot of when they were really good, their defensive profiles were typically very good. As you see here, when in the 07-08, they were 6th in adjusted defensive efficiency.
Yeah.
The following year, they were 37th, which they took a step back. 2010, they were 41st, and then 52nd the following year. But again, they were 9th in 2012, and they went 24-9.
Yeah.
They were 4th in the country when they were 25-7. That was, of course, the Florida Gulf Coast year. And in the past 3 years, they were 91st, 34th, and last year they were 80th.
Well, I mean, in fairness, though, all those teams had at least one NBA player.
But that's what I'm saying. They're losing these recruiting battles and not getting players who can play well defensively. So, and that's really what's fit the bill of John Thompson's teams is that the usually outstanding ones have had outstanding defensive profiles. When they don't, they'll typically, and that's obvious. So if you have good defense, you're going to be good. But that's just what their trademark has been.
Yeah.
And they've fallen off the map. So it's no surprise that they've fallen behind in the Big East Conference because they aren't able to pull in these guys who can help out their teams. And if you look on, let me go to Sports Reference here. Go to schools, because I obviously go to Georgetown. And last year, you look at some of their defensive ratings per. You see this right now.
Yeah,
they're all over 100, and 100 is obviously the average mark for defensive rating. And anything below that is typically very good.
Yeah.
Anything above that means you're basically a sieve.
Yeah.
And the biggest issues came from Trey Campbell, ESR, Copeland, and LJ Peak, who are all 105 or higher.
Yeah.
And you notice also that some of these guys, had pretty high offensive ratings. So they were good offensively, but just they were one-way players.
Yeah.
They weren't playing well both ways.
Yeah.
And as a result, you saw some of the things that Georgetown was doing defensively, and it just wasn't there.
Yeah. And
they were losing because of that. So,
yeah. Well, I'm curious. What was Rodney Pryor at last year?
That's a good question. Let me see. Rodney Pryor was at 97.9.
Oh, so yeah,
which is
that's an
quite
upgrade.
good.
If you can, obviously, you're playing a higher caliber of talent.
But especially when you look at the rest of the Robert Morris team, they were all
they were just like Georgetown.
Yeah,
and he was So if he can come and he can give you that defensive intensity too,
exactly. It's a big help. It's
a
big start from right as he shoots in. If he was the best defensive player on a bad defensive team, it certainly helps him. Obviously, defensive rating is very correlated with how your team does as a whole.
Yeah.
So that he was still below 100 on an obviously very poor defensive team in Robert Morris is a good sign.
Yeah.
And I'll even look on KenPom where they were defensively. Yeah, they were 183rd in the country, which is just around average.
Yeah. So
and their defense was just it was very average across the board. So it's a very good sign that Pryor is a guy that can come in here and add a level of intensity defensively.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows they need it.
Yeah. All right. Questions?
So you want to shift over to questions now?
Yeah.
All right. Do you foresee a significant shift in the offensive tempo for the Hoyas? This is coming from Rowie Hader.
Yeah, I think I talked about it earlier. I think slowing it down, working it into the bigs, I think that might maybe run a little bit of pick and roll action. You got to use what you have to your benefit.
Yeah, there obviously needs to be some type of adjustment because whatever they've been doing lately hasn't really been working, even if they've had such high offensive efficiency players.
Yeah,
but they definitely need to take a step back and just kind of make adjustments where they need to be made. So yeah, I could see a bit of a change if they're willing to.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have their Princeton offensive system that they've run for so long now, but maybe a little tweak here and there to like you said, feed the big men and create shots that way by forcing presence out there to be able to help on the outside. Should be able to get things done there.
Yeah.
Next one coming from Chris Lane of VU Hoops. Which mid-major will they lose to this season? Well, we didn't say that they would. But
maybe UConn.
Oh God.
Oh, I'm sorry. They have football, so they're not a mid-major.
Right for the jugular.
They're on the CBS Sports Network, and they share a conference with Tulane, but they're not a mid-major.
Right for the jugular. Okay, next one coming from at City31. How do you see Rodney Pryor impacting the Hoyas? Well, we kind of just touched on that. I think most of his impacts will come defensively. Whatever comes offensively is certainly a boost for this team, even though they have a pretty solid offensive profile. I wouldn't say, a very high one, but a good enough one where, they can get it done as long as he he's an efficient player. But I think defensively is where he'll be most impacting them.
Yeah. And, Chicago area guards in their first year in the Big East have historically been pretty good. My sample is last year. And, yeah. So, I'm really high on Pryor. I think he's a good scorer. Was not this good in high school. So really has blossomed into a nice player.
All right, next one coming from Hoya Hoops at Hoya Hoops 33. How deep is JT3 planning to go with the bench? Typically, you'll see him go pretty deep.
Yeah.
So he has had an affinity for using just about everybody. As we've mentioned the past 2 or 3 years or so, he has dipped into the freshman pool and thrown them into the wolves, so to speak. Last year, Georgetown, let me go back to them real quick. Last year, Georgetown had logged 9 players per KenPom who at least had limited roles. 12 players who were at least bench warmers who played fewer than 10% of the team's minutes. One of which included Paul White, who was only in there for 7 games.
Yeah.
So he'll typically use everybody. So I wouldn't be surprised if pretty much everyone on this roster, from LJ Peak all the way to Bradley Hayes, and even a walk-on in George Murison, Reggie Cameron, Mulmore, Mosley, everyone's gonna get on the floor.
Yeah,
I could very easily see a situation where everyone gets on the floor.
George Murison, the guy that used to play for the Bullets, is that his son?
I
think it actually is.
I think it might be.
The guy that was 7'7" or whatever.
Yeah, I think let's see. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was him. It does look like it, yeah. So, yeah, that's probably on the right track.
Nice.
Okay, let's go to our next question from Chris Gross. Which food items should we give away at women's basketball this season? First came kale, then beets.
Maybe you should try food that people like. Kale's pretty bad. Beets are pretty bad. If you're gonna stick with vegetables, there are even vegetables that people like. Give away
radishes.
Radishes are.
Radishes are very good with
celery.
Mexican food.
Yeah, celery. People like celery.
Yeah,
I'm a celery guy. A lot of people are.
Hey, ants on a log is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean,
celery with peanut butter and raisins. That's right there. Right there.
Speaking of Chris Gross, big fan of the marriage proposal thing they got going on.
I would expect them to, or at least would hope that they give away their packages or whatever the reward was for saying no. I hope that they.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. It's very tacky. I'm sorry. I don't. I'm not gonna get into this though. Okay. Next question.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes to us from Doug Adams at Doug Adams 25. The rest of the Big East is having success on the recruiting trail. What has happened to Georgetown? Hoya alum here. I think it's a simple case of them just not winning.
No, yeah.
I think that's all of what it boils down to. Because if you look at the teams who are hitting the recruiting trail hard and winning consistently, with the exception of Marquette, they are going deep into the NCAA tournament. They're winning games in the NCAA tournament. They're finishing high in the Big East Conference. And they are reaping the rewards because of it.
It doesn't entirely explain how Jay Wright ended up with Josh Hart and Chris Jenkins and Darryl Reynolds all from down there, because Villanova, I don't think, was particularly good.
In the early 2010s, not quite. Those were kind of their lean years, so to speak, because they were pretty good. And then they had, Well,
because I know Arch's first year, they were bad.
Oh, yeah. No, they were because let's see. Let's go back here. So 2010, they were 25-8. Then they were 21-12 in 2011, and then they were 13-19 in Archidiakonos. Was that Archidiakonos' first year? No, it wasn't. They were 13-19 in Javon Pinkston's first year.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And Darren Hilliard's.
Yeah.
But then the following year, they went just 20-14.
Yeah. So
and barely made the NCAA tournament. Because they had gone 10-8 in the Big East, and then went out in the second round of the Big East Conference tournament to Louisville.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't quite explain it, but I really just think that most of it, though, has to just simply do with the fact that they're just not winning.
Yeah.
And other teams are lapping them. And it doesn't help that, Virginia has had so much success lately. Well, because that's obviously an area that they're recruiting against. Same thing with VCU.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought that VCU would be going on the tears that they have of late with Shaka Smart when they had him?
Yeah.
And they're still maintaining that success right now too.
Yeah. And part of the problem is you can't win unless you get good recruits, and you can't get good recruits unless you win. I mean,
it kind of just goes hand in hand there.
Yeah.
So I think what it boils down to is simply that. All right, a couple questions from Super Hoops at Super Eric Rogers,
who has a big East Coast bias shirt.
He does. When we appreciate that. Predictions on the starting five. We'll go to you first. If you want to look at, I'll pull up their depth chart for you.
All right, let's see.
Well, sort of their depth chart, but their scholarship chart here.
I think you're probably gonna, at least at the start of the year, have Trey Campbell running the point. I think it might become Jonathan Mulmore.
Yeah.
At some point. Obviously, I have Pryor as the 2, Peak at 3, and then it gets a little interesting. You can have some games where you maybe go big and you can. I think Copeland probably starts the year as the 4, and Govan or
I'm surprised Hayes isn't listed.
Hayes isn't. I don't.
But I know he's definitely there.
He might not have a scholarship.
Yeah,
this
he
year,
might not technically be a scholarship player. Even though sometimes they do have non-scholarship players on your.
No, he's definitely back though.
Yeah, no, he's definitely back.
I would start him over, or I would start Govan over Hayes, but maybe you could. I mean, because Hayes is still 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
You want to try and get him in, and maybe you can. And they have too many forwards.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
they have too many forwards. Like I said, their front court's totally loaded.
You'd like to have Govan and Hayes on the court at the same time, but then where do you put Copeland?
Exactly.
I mean, and what are their point guard options outside of Trey Campbell? Can you move someone like Pryor to point if you need to, or Caleb Johnson if you want to go a little bigger? You shift everyone down a little bit.
Yeah. So like you said, it's a very interesting thing to decipher. If I'm gonna go with what I think it's gonna be over what I would do personally, I would probably say Campbell, Pryor, Peak. I would say Copeland gets the nod, and then probably Hayes, and then Govan I would suspect would be their 6th man, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because you could go with one of the other transfers and whatnot. Or Reggie Cameron could technically be their 6th man, or Derrickson. But I think Govan gives you the best capabilities on both the offensive and defensive side of the floor.
Well,
he gives you the most options.
Yeah.
So I think he could easily be the 6th man and come in for Bradley Hayes.
Yeah.
Or if you want to pull Copeland and put Govan in for both offense and defense,
I mean,
then you have it right there. Or you could, if Copeland is going to be a guy who you can only really rely on offensively, then you could go with Campbell, Pryor, Peak, Hayes, and Govan.
Yeah.
And pull one of the lower forwards out and put Copeland in as a 6th man.
Yeah.
And then do what you want with your second unit of, Johnson, Mosley, Mulmore, Derrickson, Agal, and then Cameron.
Yeah.
And, Trey Morning even as well. So
yeah.
He has his fair share of options down low. It's just a matter of how is he going to utilize it.
Yeah.
So that's all pretty fair.
And then,
all right, and then he says, impact that Ronnie Pryor has. We already went into that. Defense. Also, does JT go with Govan or Hayes, or have a package where they play together?
All of the above?
All of the,
depending
I think,
on the situation?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I would definitely expect him to utilize the fact that he has 2 guys that are 6'10" or higher.
Yeah.
And on his roster. It would be crazy not to, especially in a league that's starting to get a little smaller. If you have big guys at your disposal, you might as well use them to your advantage, especially if they can contribute on both ends of the floor. And Hayes and Govan have proven that they can.
Yeah.
At the peak of their game. So I would definitely say that. So, all right, let's see here.
That might be. I think we got maybe a couple late ones. I know VU Hoops had one.
How much will DePaul beat them by? I'm going to go heartbreaking situation, say 3. Game-winning 3 at the buzzer. No, but seriously, they should be able to beat them.
Yeah, I don't think DePaul's going to beat
them. Let's see. Is that
it?
Is that it?
Yeah, I think in terms of questions, that's probably that one. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I think that those are all of our questions. So
nice.
Yeah, so that was a good series of questions. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone who did that.
Yeah, and now we're going to talk about wrestling and baseball for 10 minutes. We did it at the end of the show, so if you want to tune out, go for it.
Wrestling history at the Verizon Center. SummerSlam 2005.
See, I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head.
SummerSlam 2005, great event, headlined by Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan.
That was stupid.
That was a very dumb match.
That was stupid.
Very, very dumb match.
The lead up was very good, but it was stupid.
It was very dumb. But Michaels, to his credit, embarrassed the hell. I didn't say it this time. Embarrassed the hell out of Hulk Hogan.
They had Capital Punishment or Capital Carnage or whatever the heck they called
Capital Punishment.
Yeah.
2011.
I didn't watch.
No, I didn't watch that either. I think the main event was like R-Truth versus John Cena or something like that.
They had a couple other ones. SummerSlam 2005 was good though.
Yeah.
I'll look up what else they had real quick.
What the hell?
Great usage of everyone's time.
Yeah, of course. DC wrestling events. I know they've had a couple Raws there.
What else has happened?
In December.
Yeah.
They typically will go there at the end of the year.
This happened at the MCI Center. Yeah. History. Here we go. Notable events. Capitals play there. Starrcade 1997.
Backlash 2000 happened there. Oh, that's a great event too. That was a very good event. Actually, that was a peak Attitude Era.
Actually, most Starrcades were there. So
yeah, no,
WCW fan.
Yeah, no. Oh, that was where Starrcade 97 happened, right?
Yeah.
That crappy event.
I just said that.
I know.
Battleground. Battleground was a good one this year.
Battleground was a good one this year.
Yeah.
Battleground was a good one this year.
Yeah.
Thanks to that crowd for, supporting numero uno for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's some wrestling stuff.
Yep. All right. And baseball now. Predictions on today's games.
Yes. Today, I'm just going to give series predictions. I think Texas wins relatively easily. Toronto's not good. I mean, they are, but not good enough to beat Hamels and Darvish.
No,
I don't think.
I definitely agree with that. And then Red Sox Indians.
I want to take Cleveland, but I don't know outside of Kluber who is going to pitch.
Trevor Bauer is pitching today.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
apparently, of course, but
he's okay. I mean, I would like a Cleveland and Texas.
Cleveland, Texas would be fun, in my opinion.
Couple tormented fan bases.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know Texas made back-to-back World Series,
but they still haven't won a World Series yet. So.
And then on the NL side, I think the Dodgers probably are going to beat the Nats. I think if the Nats had Strasburg, they'd be better off.
But they don't.
And I like the Cubs in 4.
Yeah, I think Cubs in 4, Dodgers in 4. I think I had Cubs in 5 actually, but I'll change that to Cubs in. I'll keep my Cubs in 5 then. Cubs in 5, Dodgers in 4, Indians in 5, and Rangers in 4.
And I mean, if you're left with the Cubs, Dodgers, Rangers, and Indians, your most recent World Series is 1988. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, someone wins big there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that about wraps us up here. Thank you for joining us on this historic edition of the Big East Coast Podcast with both of us in the same place at the same time.
It went long today.
It went very long today, but that's good because we talked everybody's ears off about Georgetown basketball.
Yeah, I mean, as we progress, there's more to talk about. When the teams are good.
Yeah.
So we'll be back Monday, probably for
hopefully Monday or
Marquette should be next up. Maybe
Yep, I believe.
in the
Yep, Marquette is next. So we'll be sure to talk about the Golden Eagles. We may have a guest or two join us. We're not sure yet.
Tuesday will either be Facebook Live or here, maybe, possibly.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then sometime next week, that's not Friday, we'll talk about Creighton with our pal Alex Sindelar.
Yep. So be prepared for that.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for joining us today. Be sure to keep it tuned to Big East Coast Bias as the offseason progresses. For Rob, I'm Chris, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Yep.